and welcome to Haskell Cat, the show about Haskell and cats, but mostly Haskell. So, so last time, well, just to give a little bit of context, overall, stack run. Overall, we're building a game, looks like this, which is supposed to be a clone of Baba Is You, because it's a great game, but I think it's an example of a game that is a good fit for Haskell. And I don't plan to re-implement the entire game, but like the interesting parts. And so far what I've implemented is movement, but that movement is still not quite perfect. And I'm sure spending a lot of time testing whether it is perfect yet. And so what I want to do is to write some tests. Last time we wrote a test framework, and we ended the episode being very surprised by this failure. Expected the level to contain, well, capital G is Giggles, lowercase g is the text Giggles that we can push around to form sentences, another Giggles, and on top of it, an X, just some object named X, that is stacked on top. So it's not two rows, there's a single row and it's stacked on top. And so, yeah, we expected that. We got the same thing, but that's an error somehow. So this is the code that is causing the problem. Well, that is triggering it, but not necessarily the cause. Can you spot the problem? I think I have, but in order to make sure, I would like to remove the one part of the output that could possibly take two values that are equal and yet print them in the exact same way, and that is this concat here. So let's just have a single line with show instead of concat. And it doesn't have check. Because I'm concatenating a list of strings with a single string. My vim surround foo is not super powerful. Let's see, change surrounding parents with square bracket. There you go. And now you can see the problem, which is what I suspected. Well, I didn't suspect it last time. I was completely baffled, but like I was looking at the code before the stream, and that's what I had guessed. That is, here, since we are using parse level, which only supports stacks of one at each position in the 2D grid, we're receiving a list of strings. So that is a level with two rows, each of which is just a stack of one. But we are checking it against a single row consisting of two stacks. So that's why the test fails, because the level isn't even the right shape. So I am not quite sure how I can make the output clearer. Because like with this output, like it's clear what the problem is. Well, that's why I made the change, but it's not nice. Whereas with this output, it's nice, but it's not clear. Maybe if we found a syntax, an ASCII syntax to encode that there's more than one stack, like if the two, like if there was only a single list of strings rather than a list of strings, and there was some kind of magic character at the beginning indicating that those two are part of the same stack. So if I had like another row on top of it, that would indicate that I have a row of 3 blanks followed by a single row of giggle and X on top of the text giggle and giggles. The problem there is that if I also want to have on the previous line another X on top of the text giggle, then if I use this syntax again to indicate that they are part of the same stack, then, well, now it looks like they're all part of a single giant stack. So that won't do. I need a different format. Maybe something like a dot or something. Well, the floor is probably more special than the ceiling. So like if I did want, like I was really trying to figure out, okay, should I make like the floor special or the ceiling special? And I now think I want the floor to be special. So only one of those 4 characters. If I did want a stack of 4, I would write it like that. I'm not sure what the ASCII thing represents. Maybe like this would look a bit nicer, even though I just said I wanted to make the floor special. Because like it looks like a pole. Yeah, I like the pole better. So the reason I wanted to make the floor special was because it's already special, right? All of the characters are at the bottom, and then there's like an infinite stack of white space on top. So I thought similarly there was like a special character at the bottom, and then an infinite stack of vertical pipes. Maybe I can just leave. Wait, there's already a dot here? What do dots mean? Did I add that by accident? Yeah, it was a cheat, okay. So what if I put a dot when it's an actual ground tile? So like this would be 2 ground tiles, two rows of which each have a stack of height 2. This would be a single row will stack as height 1. Like this would be 3 rows and so on. Yeah, I like that syntax. So let's update our parsers and pretty printers to print it like that. So instead of concat, let's see. So pprint level. Oh, it is currently returning a list of strings. So instead of post-processing it in pretty print level, I will add the dot. So let's see. Each row is reversed. That's my stack, right? Yes, here I have a stack. Pretty print row returns a stack. So I guess here, if I return, I think it's correct to return a list of strings, but here, I guess instead of returning a list of string, I need to slap in a concat. Yeah, that looks good. For the types as well, at least. But now I need to prepend the dot or the space, and I can do that in pretty print row, where I guess I should add a comment. Ground floor first. So since the ground floor is first, it means I need to put the dot on front of the first one. But the way in which I do my recursion, it's currently the last element which is special. So I guess here before I do the reverse, when it is still the first element which is special, I can zip with cons a list consisting of dot followed by an infinite number of spaces. So yeah, I have a dot, space, 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 or like this, a dot, space, 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 space. I have my ground floor, and then the other rows that come after it. I zip them together, I prepend the character. Now each of them are prepended by the right thing. No, it doesn't type check. Why not? Because I no longer need the concats. Still doesn't work. Expected should now be a list of strings. There you go. So now the error message explains, I think, what is going on. Oh, I still have my weird output like this. Not my weird output, my example, which was like 4 lines high, whether it's 4 stacks or 1 row or 4 rows, doesn't matter. I wanted this input. Okay, so now we can see that the expected and actual differ by a dot. So now it's clear what the problem is. And I would like to extend the syntax here to use the same format, just to be consistent. And also because otherwise I'm not able to describe while parsing a level that has things stacked on top of each other. So where is run test defined? Run test is calling parse level. So say parse level is taking a list of strings that we now want to interpret in a slightly different way. Ground floor is prefixed with dot. Okay, and I guess in print level as well. Where's that? Did I put it in a different file for some reason? Yeah, I put both of those in the tests because I think I thought that those were specific to the tests, but now that I want to use the same format in parse level and in pprint, yeah, the same format in parse level and pprint level, I think it would make sense to define those two one next to each other. Okay, so ground floor first, whereas here it's the opposite. It's like top. Let's see. So because when we display it in the glass, positive y is up. So biggest y first. Ground floor last. Ground floor is prefixed with dot. Same thing for parse level. Okay. So for parse level, yeah, I want to interpret it differently. Presumably it calls something like parse row somewhere in there. Doesn't look like it. So how does this work? Level, string level, cell size. That's the number. Yeah, that's the width and height of the level. So now that my string representation is 1 character wider, I need to subtract 1. And here I'm doing something weird. I'm reversing the string. Oh, I know what the problem is. It's that I am taking each of the rows in the string and just assuming that it's one line of the string, one element of the string per row, and using it to generate the y. But now I need to be a bit smarter in the way in which I parse this, so that I group together the rows which go together because they are part of the same. No, I keep using the word row to mean two different things. The lines that should be grouped together because they are part of the same row. So, I think I need to write some special parse row function. Parse. But yeah, so here's the thing about parsing. When you parse a list of things, like usually we're parsing a string, so it's a list of characters. Usually the type is not as clean as this, that you have your input and the result is the parsed thing. It's only like at the top level, when you parse the entire input, you expect the result to be the entire parsed thing. Well, usually like you can have failure here. I guess I decided that it was fine to fail with an undefined if I write the incorrect level description, because it's not like something that the user is inputting, it's something that is my fault. But yeah, when I'm parsing a component of the bigger thing, like when I'm parsing a single row, I want to be able to return the part of the input that I have not parsed. So parse row would be more like row, whatever, it's a list of string, like the list of lines that I have deemed to be part of the same row, and then this bit will explode it into individual columns somehow. But also, oh, this is confusing because it's the same type, but also the rest of this input that has not been parsed. Okay. Maybe there's a better way. There's already a parse entity here, so maybe I can make this, instead of a list of string, I can already do the work to have a list of entities, because each cell in the row has a stack of entities. Okay, let's try that. So now I know that if the line begins with a space, that there's more to come. So I need to do something in that case. Let's try what. And if it begins with a dot, then this is the end. Let me now say hi to the camera, like this. Look at the camera. Need to put him on a tiny pedestal so that his face is level with the camera. And I don't need to hold him. Let's see, a box of tissue. No, you're going to go like that. Let's try it. Let's try it. If your paws are on the box. No, it doesn't like it. Never mind. I don't want to let you do things you don't want to do. So, if I begin with a dot, that is the last line that I want to parse. So I think that in this case, since it's not the last line, and like I'm aware that this is a partial function, I think there's another case here, which is because it's partial in one sense because it could begin by a character other than space or dot. But like I said, it's something that I wrote in my source code. Well, ideally this would fail like at compile time, not at runtime. But this isn't the kind of failure that I want to keep track of with precision, because like I want to be able to handle the failure and display a nice error message to the user. Like if it fails, it's fine. It will fail early and I will see that it's my fault and I will fix the code. Cat, yes, Thanks, Andrew. It is a cat indeed. So, yes, so what I was saying, yes, it's partial for two reasons, for that, for the first character, but also because it could be an empty list instead of a non-empty list, and that's something I do need to worry about, because as I parse row after row, like how will I know when I'm done? Should that be the responsibility of parse row or of parse level? Well, parse level still is doing a lot of things, so how about parse rows, which will take a string, and just like parse level, it parses the whole thing. So we don't need to return the remainder, we can just return not a level, because I guess it would be the responsibility of parse level to do the conversion, but it will return a list of rows, each of which is that thing, so a list of entities. And for this one, when we encounter the end of the list, we know that we are done, there's no more rows, and otherwise, we can call parse row to get the first row, and we will get back well, the row, but also the rest. I guess I can call it S instead of XS. And I can call parse rows recursively on S prime and prepend the row I have just obtained. Okay, so now I guess it's called string level. Sure, we use that word everywhere. String level. Okay, and I would like a little bit of. I'm not sure if I get immediate feedback. It seems like there's a big delay on the right before I get feedback. Usually GHCD is much faster. I'm wondering if it's because I'm running it in a weird way. Oh, it's because I'm editing source/level, but I've ran it to only reload if I've modified something in the test file. So let's switch to the library, and I don't want to run the test every time. I just want to see if I've made any type errors. Okay, so I'm happy with parse rows. I haven't done anything with parse row yet, and parse level. Well, basically, what I want to do is to convert what parse rows has parsed. So I guess convert level would be a useful function in there. Like convert level of like whatever parse rows gives. Alright, that's a useful function. Convert level from the representation that is a list of entity to a level. So now it's not string levels, it's like rows. And now everywhere string level was used, instead of string level it's rows. And it's still the case that it's the biggest Y first. It's no longer the case that it's ground floor last, because I will reorder the entities here. So ground floor last is a comment of parse rows, but now I need to explain that each entity ground floor last in the input, ground floor first in the output. Okay. And it doesn't matter whether I'm talking about the biggest Y first or last, because I'm only parsing like a bunch of rows in whichever order it's up to parse level to interpret them. Okay, and convert level, is it still, okay, let's just fix the type errors. Parse rows is complaining because I forgot to rename XS to string level. And 118. Oh, I still need to know the length of something. Oh, but it's not the length of the string level. It's the length of the rows, right? That was it was a very good thing that I divided up my logic so that convert level is separate. Otherwise, I probably would not have caught this error that the number of lines in my string is no longer the number of rows in my level. Speaking of things that I would not have caught, this is an easy mistake to make. Like usually we're able to rely on the type checker to find all of the things that we need to change whenever I change a type somewhere, because most of the time if I change the type, then all of the call sites are now failing with type errors, because most code is not polymorphic enough to work on the new type and the old type. But there are a bunch of functions, such as length, which do work on a variety of types. In this case, it works both on a list of strings and a list of entities. So here, I think the logic is now wrong, even though it doesn't have a type error. So even though I see I do have a type error that I need to fix, I know I'll forget if the compiler doesn't remind me to change it. So while I'm looking at it, let me think about it. So I have a list of rows, each of which is a list of cells, each of which is a stack of entities. So length of head rows. So the first row, if I take its length, it will give me the number of elements. So that's actually correct. I don't need to change this logic. But this is the kind of logic where if I had changed like the meaning of like whether my rows are at the second level of nested lists or the third level of nested lists, I would not have gotten a type error. So it's good that I walked through the code and made sure that the logic was fine, and it was fine and did not need to be changed. Okay, so 93. What is it complaining about? Couldn't match char with char. Indeed, because I'm receiving a list of lines, and it's only if the first line, so I guess a string row, first line begins with space, thing for the dot. That's pretty cramped. Add more white space. Okay, so there's still some undefineds, but before we get to those, let's fix the type errors. So it's expecting that rows is a list of strings, and so here row, which is split up into C for character, this is actually a stack of entities, which I think is already what we need here, entities. And I'll put that near the undefineds here, because I'll need to use that code over there. 123, if I can type, entities. All right, only warnings left. 58. Wait, what? That's not where I expect it to be. Source level 58. It's this file. Parent match, non-exhaustive. Oh, I think in the last episode I did intentionally leave this warning to remind me that I wanted to change the way in which I was representing my level data so that I could write fewer partial functions. But that's not what I want to do right now. I want to fix this undefined. So I'm parsing a row. I will need a recursive call to parse row in order to parse the rest of the rows in string level. So that will give me a string level prime, so the thing that has not been parsed that I want to return, and a bunch of rows, but I still need to parse the first row from string row. And how do I do that? Well, parse entity parses a single character. So if I call parse entity on each character of the string row, then I will get a list of entities. But that is not like the variable name entities I just mentioned, like the stack. So I think I should be a bit more careful in my naming. So that's an entity stack. Whereas here, what is this? Another occurrence of the word entities. This one is also an entity stack, I think. Yes. Okay, but this occurrence of the word entity, that's an entity row with one entity per cell. And this is something that I'm adding on top of those that I have added before. So I would need to append them to the rows. So not the rows. So each row is a list of entities. How many lists? Parse row, a single, okay, I'm parsing a single row, right. So this should not be rows plural. This is, I'm getting a single row, a list of entity stacks, but now I have a list of single entities that I want to append. Had you unmute while I finished up the meeting, so any ignoring it was unintentional. Okay, I did say thanks for the comment because it's indeed a cat and cats do deserve to be pointed at. Anyway, yes, so entity row, I want to construct the final row, so row prime that I'm returning here, by appending the entity for each stack at the end of said stack. So I can't do like the same nice zip with cons that I did before. I would need snuck. Is there a snuck? There is for byte string, but is there one for strings? At least not in base. Is there one that takes a string and a character to a string? I don't recognize the emoji. There is a snuck in basement, but not in anything I'm currently depending on. So I will just write lambda. Let's see, so I'm receiving first, well, it depends on the order in which I give the other two arguments to zip width. So let's say the row first and then the entity row. So I will be receiving, because a row is a list of stacks, so I'll be receiving an entity stack and an entity, and I can append the entity at the end, and I will name this operation snuck. Right, and I guess I don't need the maybe to list anymore, because that was for the special case in which there could only be a stack of 1. All right, there should still be a maybe in there in the output of parse entity. That should cause some issues, and indeed that's what the error message is about. So I still need it, actually, because this is a maybe entity. I guess if it's nothing, then I don't want to append anything. All right, type checks. Okay, so again, this is a circumstance in which the compilers don't help, because the compiler doesn't help putting type checks, but I've changed the format of what I'm parsing, right? So now the parsing will fail, but it will fail in the way I mentioned before, that it will fail with an undefined, and I will know that it's my fault. Soon, there you go. Non-exhaustive patterns in function parse row. Indeed, because I'm only covering space and dot. Let's make this slightly more readable by specifying what is the level. We need the vector types proposal to make progress clearly. I remember seeing the vector types proposal. I don't remember how it would help in the case of this snuck, especially since this string is not a vector type. This would help if I was using text, but for small projects, I'm fine with using the string. Anyway, string, I wanted to show to the user what is the string that was not parsed incorrectly. Expected a row beginning with space or dot, found whatever I found. Parse row singular. So now I should get a slightly better error message, still as an exception. Okay, what does the vector types proposal do? It unifies the underlying types for strings with vector. I knew it unified something like the type for text and the type for byte string, but I didn't realize that the string type would be affected, since it's a list, not a vector. Okay, so that error message is much better. Expected a row beginning with a space or a dot, but I found SA blah blah blah, and I can search for this unique string to figure out where I made the mistake, and it's where I defined my level. I now need to use the new format in which I prefix everything with a dot. Still crashes. Oh, with undefined. I've not finished all of my undefineds. I have not. Bad boy. right, because I did the case with the space. Now I need to do the last row. In which case, I think I need to do the same thing I was doing before, but which I deleted, which was the like list to maybe of parse entity, and I do that for each element of the string row. So I guess I'm mapping that composition to the string row. I'm always a bit uncomfortable with point-free stuff. I return that in string level. 103, that line, no good. String row. So it's a list of characters. For each of them, I parse the character into a maybe entity, I think. Yeah, maybe entity, and then, oh, it's not list maybe, it's opposite. Maybe to list. There we go. That may be a separate thing, presumably in reference to getting rid of string and forcing the use of something like text everywhere. I'm sure many would be happy about that. Personally, I'm fine, because in small projects like this one, I think the ease of use of manipulating lists is a benefit, and it's a simple enough game that the performance doesn't matter. Oh no, error in array index. That's going to be much harder to find the cause. So it could be anywhere where I have used the exclamation mark operator. Well, not in loss. Okay, so there's only 3. That's not too bad. And they're all in level, so presumably in one of the functions that I've just edited in level. So sprites at whatever that thing is, and move sprite to, so that none of those are functions I've modified. Oh, I know. And again, I don't know how I would have figured it out. But I think, oh no, I thought that here next to the string I would have, I had hard-coded the size just by measuring the length, but clearly that's not the case, because I'm not exposing this list of strings anywhere. I'm setting it directly to parse level, and parse level, to update my tags, parse level should be measuring the right size with that. Maybe let's run it in the REPL in order to figure out what it does. To see if the output is as expected or not. So if I parse a level that is just .abc.def, there's no show instance variable, but I can at least put it in a variable. And here's one of my favorite tricks on GCI. I cannot observe the value of level because it doesn't have a show instance. However, I can use force, not in the sense that I force it to display it anyway, but in the sense that I am forcing all of the chunks that might be inside of that variable. Okay, this didn't demonstrate what I wanted to show. But like, if I define a piece of data type person, which has, I don't know, an age and a name, and I define Sam, no, I don't want to tell you my age, so I define Bob. who has age 18 and name is Bob, and I try to print Bob. I can't because it doesn't have a show instance. However, if I do force Bob, then I do get some information about the object. So that's a nice trick that we can do in GTI in order to observe values. And if there's something in there like a function that you cannot interpret, I think it will just print an underscore or something like that. All right, but so we learned that if I try to force level, then there's an exception. And that I don't know if that means that the exception occurs when I try to force level to normal form, or well, we had normal form, or if that happens while force is trying to pretty print it. So let me check level seek unit, and it does succeed at forcing level to weak head normal form and then printing unit. So it means that it's really when trying to force the fields of level. So can I do that on the variable name? And it just tells me the type, and then I can call info on level to know what are the fields. I know it's a bit claustrophobic on the top right, but I need to know like what are the names of the various functions, like convert level and so on, that I might want to call. So that's why I'm doing it up there. Okay, so level has two fields. Well, I guess I could just look it up here, that I just said that was the reason I was keeping it there, is that I could still navigate the code and see what are the names of the various things. So let's see if the exception is in level array. Yes, it is. Whereas level list, okay, so it's not in one nor the other, but maybe in the code which constructs them. Let's see. Seek. Okay, so this time it's not while pretty printing, it's really while constructing the level list. And what about the level array? Same thing. So I'm a bit confused now. Oh no, I know. So when earlier I did level seek unit, that did not give me much information, not as much information as I thought it was giving me. Because since it's only forcing to weak normal form, then even if the value was like level undefined for both of the fields, then this with seek unit, it will still succeed because it doesn't force either of the two fields, it just forces the outermost constructor. It checks that the outermost constructor is indeed a level as opposed to an undefined, like undefined seek unit, that would fail. But in the code we were just playing with, the very first thing I was doing somewhere in convert level, I seem to have issues with white space, is to construct that constructor with whatever are the values here. So it means that the problem is somewhere in here. Unfortunately, those are not exposed at the top level, so I cannot really play around with those in the REPL. Like one big advantage of pure code is that it's supposed to be easy to test, because whenever I have an expression that is failing, like this one, I can always like decompose it into the expressions it contains. Like if I had, for example, undefined plus 3, 20 parentheses, I'm not sure, seek unit. So, wait, what? What did it fail? I expected it to fail with an undefined. But instead, it says ambiguous occurrence of plus. Okay. I do mean prelude dot plus. Is that clear enough? Okay. So Uh, okay, it defaulted the type to integer, that's fine. But then it failed with undefined, right? And since undefined plus 3 is a compound expression, I can always try to figure out where the source of the problem is, like whether it's an exception like this one, or if it's that the value is incorrect. Like I could look at both arguments of the plus and see which of the two is problematic. So I could look at the 3 and see that the 3 is fine, and then look at the undefined and see that the undefined is not fine. And I can narrow it down to the problem. And I can usually do this with pure code, except that here, like, even though I know that level consists of this expression and that expression, I cannot easily play with it at the REPL because neither of those are in scope. So that means I have to like redefine them. So I had like way back when I had defined level as parse level of rows. Oh, well, I wanted to define rows as that list of strings that I just mentioned, that I had passed to parse level, but I now realize that convert level is receiving a list of entities. So maybe the problem is before that. So let's see what. So now I can do the thing I just said. I can investigate in parse level whether the problem is in convert level or parse rows by calling parse rows on the input that I gave way back when. So .abc.def, and I get a list of lists, and each of those most deeply nested lists have length 1, so there's just stacks of 1. A, B, C, they're all caps, even though I wrote them lowercase, because that's just my convention. If I use a lowercase, I interpret it as a text block with the name of the thing, whereas if I write a capital letter, it's an object. Like if I had written A, B, C, all caps, then it would say object A instead of text A. Anyway, but this seems to work. Like the first row contains object A, object B, object C, and then at the end of the row, and then the next thing. So let's just put that in a variable. Rows is that thing. And now let's try to figure out why convert rows, RBJ, no, convert level of rows, I still can't show it, is failing. And okay, now we encountered a problem. I wanted to say that these are not at the top level. I guess I could just copy them. So now that rows is in scope, just like in this where block, I should be able to just paste it as is. Still complains about this weird, why is num and minus, okay, so this is deep inside of gloss, okay. Instead of stack GHCI that tries to load all of the packages that are in scope, how about just loading Giggles is ulib. So now I think there should only be one plus and one minus in scope. And now I can put rows in scope, and like I did a minute ago, paste the definition of string level size. It doesn't work. Illegal type signature. I guess I need to enable all of the language extensions that are on top. Record wildcards. Scope. Type variables. Tuple sections. Oh, did I write it wrong? Some flags have not been recognized. Oh, dash X, tuple section, and dash X for extension, view patterns. right, so now I think I should be able to paste the code. Still not. Expected kind, no, kind. We have a kind error. I'm not doing some crazy type level magic. This is supposed to be a simple program that I use to like show you that Haskell can be used to write simple games and answer all of your questions about it. So I intentionally tried to keep the code complexity small. So why is it talking about kinds? Well, let's take a closer look. Expected kind, K0 star, but cell size as type star, I agree, it has type star, and it's type cell size string level. What? Oh, I know why. So if you look at here, it's the indentation. I put the type signature here at indentation 0, and just because I've copied it like this, the first row has a different indentation than the others. So it thinks that this line, so this part, actually is just a continuation of the type signature, so like this. And indeed, like cell size is a type, it's not a type constructor, like list, so it doesn't need a type argument. So that explains the error message. Let's try again, and this time with no indentation whatsoever. No. Paste. There you go. String level cell size 2 by 2. Wait, that's wrong. And that's what I want to know, right? I wanted to dive down and find where is the problem. And since rows, well, remember it comes from a .abc and .def, so I expected 3 by 2. And it's because, I subtracted one when I shouldn't have. Because at this point, like when it was string level, it would have made sense, but now that it's rows, it has already been parsed. The dot has been removed. And yeah, I see comments that are telling me that it is indeed the indentation mismatch. I should have looked at the comments. Okay, so I think I found the problem. So I should now be able to run the code again. And now hopefully, yeah, I remember those warnings are intentional from last time. All right, no crash, excellent. And how about the test suite? In which file is that? In main. I will remove that from main. Don't even see it in main. Must have misunderstood the error message. Anyway, so now it still complains. Because it pretty prints it in the opposite order I see. Well, is it that it pretty prints it in the opposite order, or does it parse it in the opposite order? Right? So, let's see. Maybe I have one too many reverses somewhere. So let's just look at all of the reverses. So, pretty print level is reversing the entire list. Like that's why I added my comments, so that I would know like in which order the things are. And I haven't touched pretty print level, so, well, I've added the dots, but we already did a test with that, and that seems fine. So it's probably any other reverse. So this one, it's receiving the biggest Y first, so it needs to reverse it. That makes sense. But the other, well, I know that it would fix it if I do that, but it wouldn't be very satisfying because I don't understand why it needs to be reversed again. Let's see. So as I parse the rows, yeah, I don't think that accidentally reverses it one more time. Oh, it still says failure? Okay, well, then it's good that I felt that this reverse was correct. Because apparently that was not the problem. So just to make double sure, if I remove it, the output is the same, right? Because it could be that like the output is different in both cases, but they're quite like the expected would be dot x instead of x dot in this case. No, it's the same. So the whether I reverse or not changes nothing, which makes me wonder if this code is even being compiled. Like if I use nothing, this should be completely different, right? Indeed, it's very different. There's an undefined array. Okay, so what is causing the error? Let's go back to, I still have the reverse now, right? Yes. If I go back to the test, and testing, the same thing. Are they parsed in a different way? Oh, well, I guess my pretty print is no longer the inverse of my parse function. Let's test that. Stack REPL, no, stack DHCI with just the library. So that's only one plus is in scope. So let's see if so now parse level should be working. In the sense that it doesn't crash. But if I pretty print the level, yeah, it outputs it in the, wait a minute, it outputs it all caps? Why does it outputs it all caps? Those are text objects, not, So they are not inverses, but they're not inverses in a different way than what I expected. I expected that, like maybe when I parse and then pretty print, I would get the same list of strings, but in the reverse order or something. But that's not what I get. It's still ABC and then DEF, but they're all caps, which doesn't match the error we were seeing. This is super weird. What if I use all caps into input? Like, does it toggle? Yeah, it shadows it, that's fine. Pretty print. Okay, it I guess always uses the all caps. Okay, so I guess there's two bugs. But then in the output of the test, here, like it didn't capitalize G. So I guess G is special? Like if I parse EF at G, lowercase g, yeah, it shadows it, I know. Yeah, so the lowercase g is special, so then I know why. Well, I don't know why, but I know where. It's going to be in parse, not enp print entity, which, if it's an object or a text, in both cases I was printing the name, but for the text I want to print, I want to use the lowercase, so to lower. Does it compile? Like, I don't know if it's in scope. It is in scope. And now that I have fixed that, can you go back in the REPL? And parse the version with the lowercase and pretty print, and I get lowercase back. Oof, great. Okay. Oh, I just tested like the easy case in which everything is a dot, but the case which fails is a case in which not everything is a dot. So if I do this, and so it's space and then dot, if I pre-print the level, aha! Now it's in the opposite order. Okay, okay, so now things are starting to make sense. So let's see if, like, where the problem is. So we had parse, not entity, rows, I think it was called. Space, abc dot def. So this returns well, it should be returning a single row. So head of rows will be slightly less confusing because there's slightly less nesting. And okay, so now that's a list, and for each of them we have a stack. And is the stack in the right order? Who knows? Let's look at the comments for what should parse rows return. Ground floor first in the output. So D should be below A, which matches what I wrote. D is below A, D is on the ground floor, A is stacked on its head, like this. And so that's fine, which means, oh, it's probably in the pretty printer then. Well, actually, we don't know, because that was parse rows, and then we have parse levels. So let's look at the first entry of the level array. So at position, let's see, 0, 1. So x is 0, so 0, and y is positive 1. 0, 1. Okay, import juicy.r.array, which is not in scope. It just told me about it. juicy.arr. Oh, the module is juicy.arr. Okay, there you go. It was just telling me all of the positions anyway. So there's 0. Okay, no, that's the size. 0 from 0, 0 up to 2, 0. Oh, right, because there's only one row. So I shouldn't be using 1 to go one row above. I should be looking at entry 0, 0, which is the leftmost cell in my row. And now the floor is first, which is good. Okay. So that means that parse level is correct. It's pretty print level. Let's see. So pretty print row, does it say ground floor first? Is that correct? Because I have a list of entities somewhere. Parse rows. I think I have a row. Yeah, a row is a list of entities where the ground floor is first. So if I pretty print that row, it's now in the opposite order, and I know why. It's because this comment was insufficiently precise. Elsewhere I was distinguishing the input from the output, right? So ground floor first in the input, last in the output, right? Because I want to print the sky before the ground, so that the ground is at the bottom. Okay, so if that's indeed the case, then pretty print row is returning something with the ground floor last, but wait, what is it doing? If they're all null, then it's the end. I think in pretty print row it was still first. Okay, so what is calling pretty print row? That's the thing that should reverse it. There is a reverse here. Because, yeah, okay, good thing I didn't add a reverse in pretty print row, because I was relying on it returning the ground first, so that I could prefix the dot in front of the ground, but I still want to reverse the output so that within a single set of stacked rows, I print the ground last, and there's this extra reverse here that I was doing just so that I could iterate over all of the rows. Yes, it is clean. Yes, so I think I finally found the bug. It's that here I'm iterating over all of the rows starting at 0, so from bottom to top. That's why I wanted to reverse them back, so that I would, even though the list I'm producing is from bottom to top, I am printing the top before the bottom. But that cancels the reverse I put here. So I could delete either this reverse or this reverse, and it would solve the problem. I guess this reverse. And now, stack this. Wait. My tests are not working. They're passing! Yay! Okay. So, I think that is way enough for today. We managed to make the test pass. Thank you for bearing with me as I spent so much time figuring out what is the cause of the bugs I have just introduced in that same stream. Short-term memory. So thank you very much, and see you next week. Ciao!